In this video, you're going to watch UFC Hall of Famer, former two-time welterweight champion Matt Hughes give encouragement to police and first responders out there doing the best they can. And he's also going to share advice about winning, training, but he's also going to share with you the greatest comeback of his life when he was tragically involved in a train crash in 2017, putting him in a medically induced coma for 19 days. He suffered a traumatic brain injury along with other injuries, but he kept fighting, and he is here today to talk with me. Let's get right to the interview with Matt Hughes. Well, let's just go a few years back when you started in MMA. Just a few years, you know.
Do you know how old I am now?
Well, I'm not going to say it. I know how old you are, but if you want to disclose that to the audience, go right ahead.
I'm 50, so
Yep.
this old man, I get the best excuse in the world. I'm 50, so I forget everything.
Well, I know you remember your MMA days. I know I
I
sure as
do.
heck do. But when you went from wrestling into mixed martial arts, was going into the UFC like a purpose or a goal, or was that just an opportunity that came about?
Opportunity that come about. I never thought I took this sport up just as a hobby. I never thought I'd be good at it. I just want to compete.
Outstanding. All right. Well, when you did start, and then you went on this amazing streak of like win after win after win. How many hours a day did you put into training? I have to ask.
I'd wake up in the morning. With the fight coming up, I'd go for like 45 for a half minute run, 45-minute or hour run, just come back, eat breakfast. Then a couple hours later, I go to the gym, I lift weights, and then I just do some light technique with like Jens or Tony Franklin or someone at the gym on the mat. German horn was great for me. So I do some light technique, and then I take the whole afternoon off, and then come back in the evening. And that was hard training.
Gosh, yes, that is. Man, when you were being trained by, let me make sure I say the name right, Pat Miletich.
You said it right.
Okay, good. When you were being trained by him, what kind of restrictions did you have to go on, like diet wise and all this kind of stuff? I'm just curious because I mean, professional athletes, you know, you got to be held to a strict or just a, I don't know, different level of training. So
I was always big on beating my best, so no one had to tell me had to do anything. I sat at the console for my to get my dad, so Pat really didn't have anything to do with that because Pat was he's good at barking orders, but he's not one following them himself.
gotcha. That's funny. I must say, when you were fighting and you were at the peak of your career, that's back when I was in college and I could still stay up late and watch UFC.
And your parents bought all the pay per views.
Oh, see, what happened was I was in college, so on campus we would go in on, go
Yeah.
in on whose house we were going to meet up at, and then watch the UFC events. So yeah.
I'm so glad I fought when I did, because when I fought, guys get together to watch it. Now it seems like it's on every week and just not as special. But these guys also seem like they fight for a paycheck. I fought because I like beating people up.
You made that very clear. Matt, I have to ask, you know, we're all human, and you're talking, your audience for this interview is going to be a lot of first responders. Physical fitness and training, particularly for police officers, like I'm a big proponent to get them on the mat. Something, it's better than nothing.
Totally. And they need to do that for the mental side. If they get
Yes.
blindsided from the back and go down, they got to know what's going on. So it's cops should not always depend on the gun, and just be ready for absolutely anything. Because if someone's going to fight with the cop, they're not going to do it legal and right. They're going to do it from the back.
Yeah, 100%. But we always had that voice in our head that says, you know, I mean, I'm sure you've heard it too, even during your MMA days, you know, that lazy voice that says sleep in or take the day off from training. How did you override that? Because you had to at your level of dedication and performance.
That voice might have said something, but I quickly dismissed it.
Dismissed it just flat out. That's great.
I was very. I knew I was a professional athlete, so I was going to be a professional athlete as much as a good. I think the way I grew up helped out with that, because we were poor on a farm, so my dad treated me like a Hebrew slave. And when we went to the gas station to get gas, we did not go inside and get a candy bar. We were poor, and I'm glad I was raised the way I was. My dad taught me to work, and my brother taught me how to be competitive.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I'm glad you shared that story, Matt. I really am. And then when it came to your time, there's three fights that come to my mind when looking back at what I remember from your career. Let's see. The first one was Carlos Newton when he had you in a very deep triangle.
In trouble. Look at the strength of Matt Hughes.
But you ended up picking him up and slamming him and knocking him out that way.
Down goes Carlos Newton.
And then Frank Trigg when he gave you
Trick two.
Yeah, that's true. Frank Trigg rematch. Yeah, and then he got you with a illegal shot to the groin, but the ref missed it.
You guys who could have very easily competed in wrestling.
And he took your back, and then BJ Penn in fight number 2, he took your back. It was getting close.
Hughes trying to hold on.
Like these 3 fights are ones where you were in bad positions. So what was going through your mind, because you ended up winning, as someone like a law enforcement officer who could be in a fight for their life? What was the mindset, and then how do you push through physically?
To every move, there's a counter, and every counter, there's a counter. So it's a chess match. So if you find yourself in a bad situation, just remember there's a way out. Even if someone has me in the ring next show, there's a ways out. So always remember there's ways out of everything. My theory as a wrestler, if I get in trouble, just pick him up.
Interesting. And then, the Frank Trigg fight was obviously tough, the number 2 one, but yeah, you choked him out.
Frank Trigg, and in that fight, I always tried to use my head. So when he kneed me low, he could fill my cup. So it pissed me off that he didn't stop and back up and give me my proper time. So in that fight, I was actually pissed. So a lot of people think I took him across the cage for theatrical reasons. I didn't, because when I was on the ground, he hit me and was trying to advance. I could hear his corner so good. So I knew my corner was across the cage. So when I picked him up, I took him to my corners. So he couldn't hear his corner, and I could hear mine. So I always thought about things, and there was a purpose for everything I did in there.
Those are details I had no idea about the corner thing. That's amazing. I think it was in that fight where I really questioned whether or not you were human.
Well, I'm not gonna say I am. How many guys get hit by a train and goes to work the next day? Now I stayed in the hospital for several months, but like right now, I'm in my work office, so I love working and doing stuff. So I know the big man above is not done with me yet.
Yeah, 100%, Matt. I'm glad and we'll get to that here in a little bit. I did want to ask you, when your career eventually came to an end in the UFC, did you look at yourself like your identity as a UFC fighter, or did you know it was something you did and therefore there could be plenty of opportunities outside of the UFC and life would go on? How did you look at it? Because a lot of times when police officers and first responders leave the career, they let it become their identity, and it's hard to move on. How was it for you in the UFC?
It's hard for me to move on because everywhere I go, someone calls me champ.
Let's get right to definitely a life-changing event for you. I remember July of 2017, on one particular day, I was at the range requalifying with my AR-15, and my former supervisor, who was also a firearms instructor, comes up to me with this most concerned look in his face. And I was like, "What's wrong?" And he said, "Matt Hughes was in a crash with a train." We both thought, just reading the headline, you had passed away. I mean, obviously, here you are. How has your life changed since then, particularly the aftermath of it with your mental health?
The wreck was at a country crossing, which means there's no lights and no cross arms. So I went up. It's very, very narrow. So I went up, and the train driver said, I paused, and it kept going. So when you go up and you look right down the tracks, all you see is the passenger headrest and the pillar between the front and back door. So it's a total blind spot. And in the hospital, I kept thinking, how did I get hit by the largest moving thing in the state? And I was very confused, but that's why the train accident happened, because I never saw it. There's rumors I was trying to beat it. That's not true at all. I never saw the darn thing. And with my brain accident, they say it's very common to forget the whole day. So now that people told me, I kind of remember a couple of things, but
Okay.
it's all gone.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You had to relearn how to walk.
How to walk, talk, eat. I had to. I was a kid when I got done.
And there was a point where it was starting to really take a toll on you mentally, to which, I mean, how couldn't it? I get that, but it got pretty bad to the point where on me asking about this, you were suicidal or having suicidal thoughts?
I thought of it. I've never been the Quentin type, so I'll always stick through and battle on, but I so dislike suicide.
Yeah, same here. There's a saying that I could not disagree with more anymore if I tried to. I hate it. And unfortunately, it's a popular phrase where some people say suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Suicide
Exactly.
is not a solution to anything for even the person that dies by suicide at all. So I'm glad you brought that point up. How did you work your way through the mental health challenges that came after the crash?
Some very good friends have helped me out the whole time. So I'm a people person, and when I was walking through my path, someone was holding my hand at all times. I say if you're going through a hard time, tell your best friend and just rely on them, because my friends got me here now.
Glad you bring that point up, because I noticed in the first responder world, particularly, I mean, even for me, when I went through battled an addiction only 2 years into my law enforcement career, I just felt like I was the only one, and I didn't speak to anybody about it at all. And I finally just reached out for help, and I got the help that I needed. But yeah, you're right. When you feel like you're going through something, just reaching out to a good, trusted friend can bring you a long way. So I'm very glad you brought up that point. Right now, throughout the country, Matt, there's a lot of police officers and other first responders who are struggling with mental health, and particularly on the law enforcement side, they don't feel supported from whether it be the higher ups within their own police department or because of this anti-police sentiment going on throughout the country and through the media. So can you give them any inspiration right now?
If you're a first responder or law enforcement, listen, we need you. Stay with your job and do it just like you're trained. But us individuals, we need you guys in every facet. So please keep doing what you're doing, and just know this common farm boy, he needs you.
Appreciate you saying that, Matt. And one last question for you. There's a lot of police officers out there that, even doing the right thing, which is the majority of them, they're doing the right thing, but they still get a lot of haters. You're a very popular guy, particularly when you were in the MMA. Haters came with the territory. How did you tune them out? How'd you let them not affect you? Any advice on that?
The more popular you get, the more haters you're going to have. It's just the way this society is. So I'm Christian, so if they're not talking to me in a Christian way, I dismiss them. So they're not. I have a small bubble, and if they're not in my window, I don't care what they're saying.
I've heard a phrase one time in college by a college professor. He said, "If everyone likes you, you ain't worth a damn."
Exactly.